I was just scratching my head and a little bit lost. I mean, I did it for all the wrong reasons. But I didn't almost go to the interview. There's a good chance that you might find, a diamond. 12 weeks flies by. The cost is absolutely next to nothing. It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. It's genuinely changed my life significantly. Fast forward to where we are today, and that the dental business is probably 2.5, maybe 3 times as big as what the direct debit bureau was, and
Wow.
we've just had an exit to private equity. Can't thank you enough.
So I've got Simon Reynolds from Patient Plan Direct with me here today. And Simon completed a step internship quite a number of years ago, although not that long ago, I suppose. So we just want to have a bit of a discussion today to talk about graduate skills, internships, and how important they are both to the young people and the small businesses that host them. So tell me about your time at university, Simon. What did you study?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Central Lancashire in Preston, and I studied. Well, the full title was Sports Technology Golf Operations.
Oh my goodness, you had grand
I
plans
was,
then.
yeah, I was quite a keen golfer, and obviously this course had an element of that. But yeah, sports technology. So a lot of biomechanics, lab stuff, design and ergonomics, etc. Really interesting degree, and then stayed on to after that was very confused about what I wanted to do. Loved university, so decided to stay on and did a master's in finance. And then after that, I ended up moving to Manchester to actually start a PhD to carry on the topic that I was looking at in my master's degree in finance. If I'm honest,
Wow.
I did
So
that
quite a
for
change of direction from sports technology.
definitely, definitely. And if I'm brutally honest, Tamsin, I did it for all the wrong reasons. I thought it was going to be another 3 years at uni. I thought it was just going to like lead me on this route to success. And ended up finding myself pretty lost, really. Just being brutally honest. But yeah, that was my time at university.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I had another question, which was what was your career plan and did you have one? But I think from what you're saying, you didn't really. You just admitted that it was some of the wrong reasons.
Absolutely, I don't think I did, Tamsin. All I knew was, if I'm just being brutally honest, I was just putting myself under pressure to sort of find this route to success.
Mm.
And I felt like I'd missed the boat with not getting involved in undergrad placements, which when I came to
Hmm.
sort of looking for jobs, so many people seems to have done that, gone and done these summer placements
Yeah,
as an
absolutely. And
undergrad.
when was this? Was this in the 2010s, 2012? Was it
Oh
what
gosh,
time?
yeah, you've got me thinking now. Probably back in, I think, 2011, 2012, maybe, if my
Yeah.
memory serves me correctly.
So I
Yeah.
think there was even more summer placements and sandwich placements back then.
Right,
So coming
yeah.
out
Yeah.
without one, it felt even more difficult for you.
Yeah, no, it did. And I remember just looking at graduate schemes, and again, this is back then, whether things have changed now, but looking at a lot of the sort of big corporate companies' grad schemes, been quite frustrated that just so many of them just seem to be focused down in the south.
Yeah.
And I was up in Manchester. I'm from Yorkshire originally, so didn't really have too much appetite to be moving down south. But I think
I think that's the
ultimately.
big thing, isn't it, Simon? I think we put a lot of pressure on young people and assume they must be mobile
Mm,
and they can go wherever the work is. And we can, as corporate employers, we can sort of use them wherever we want and however we want. But I think
mm,
there's a lot more choice now these days, and people don't need to do that. And so
that's good.
they don't want to do it. So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
good, good.
So obviously, I mean, fast forward, this is all sounding very grim, but we all know that you're incredibly successful now. So how did you find out about Step and tell us about how you sort of got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I was looking at graduate. So I dropped out that PhD. I was looking at graduate schemes. The timing of the graduate schemes wasn't great because I dropped out of that. I think within about 6 weeks of the
Mm.
PhD, I realised I'd made a big mistake, and so I was just scratching my head and a little bit lost.
Hmm.
I thought I wanted to go into accountancy. And I think it was the Manchester University Careers advice that put me in touch with STEP. And
Hmm.
I was like, this sounds fantastic. It's a sort of 12-week placement that's going to specifically for graduates. And as I touched on before, I just felt everything. I felt like I'd missed the boat because so much was
Hmm.
geared up to giving people experience in a undergraduate capacity. And so yeah, jumped at the chance to explore some of the placements that were with you guys at the time.
Yeah, and of course they're all paid naturally,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
with
Yeah.
smaller businesses. So, I mean, how did you feel about the fact that the placements that were on offer weren't necessarily with recognised brands, weren't necessarily something that you would know about. So,
Mm.
tell us a little bit about that, and then where you actually ended up.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting point to touch on, Tamsin, and a really important point to make to people coming out of university. Just being honest, I was just so
Mm.
focused on, you pick up these sort of career catalogs with all the big companies and their graduate schemes, and you just think that, going into a big proven organization, that's going to be the sort of route. But, small businesses have so much to offer.
Absolutely.
If I think about, I mean, I remember I didn't almost go to the interview. I didn't really, this is probably not great advice,
No,
but
no, but go
I
for
didn't,
it.
I didn't quite fully understand what the company I was going to, what they did. It was a direct debit payments bureau.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think at the time the company was maybe 10, 12 people, and they
Yeah,
just
sounds about right.
recognized they wanted some more hands on deck, and it was an opportunity to just go in and spend some time with, at the time, from the MD to ops to marketing,
Hmm.
and just have that exposure across quite a wide range of areas, which I think is a lot more challenging when you just maybe going into a bigger organization and trying to fit into a very specific role. So
Yeah.
yeah, really, really do not discount the benefits and the fantastic experience you can gain from going into a smaller business.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. So you did your 12-week internship with the direct debit company.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Yeah, so as I say, I think I had because it was a smaller company, I had exposure to various different elements, and it was quite clear that maybe the sales and marketing side of things, really sort of was attractive to me, and ultimately we worked on a path where I took a shine to marketing.
Hmm.
And so took a path. There wasn't a marketing resource explicitly within the business. So
Which
I
is
had the
really common in a smaller business as well, isn't it? Where
yeah,
they don't have a marketing person. Yeah.
absolutely. So super, super grateful that the business invested in me to go through the sort of qualifications to get some of my digital marketing qualifications, and then yeah, ultimately became the marketing manager for the direct debit bureau.
Brilliant.
This business had a subsidiary business, which is Patient Plan Direct, which is the business
Hmm.
I'm at now, and I started to take a shine to that. It
Hmm.
was a very, very small part of that of First Capital Cash Flow ultimately.
Hmm.
But fast forward, a lot of fast forwarding, but
Yeah.
ultimately, I took a shine to that business. I ended up going into a commercial role in that business, and then becoming the commercial director,
Yeah.
and ultimately the managing director. And
Wow.
as part of an exit plan for the direct debit bureau, there was an opportunity when that business exited and got sold. The dental business was taken out of that deal, and there was an
Hmm.
opportunity to negotiate some sort of equity at that point, and then again, fast forward to where we are today, and that the dental business is sort of probably two and a half, maybe three times as big as what the direct debit bureau was. Quite,
Brilliant.
quite, quite, quite the journey.
And
But
what sort of what size of business did Patient Plan or has Patient Plan grown to?
Yeah, so we're a business now where we've become part of a group of companies, and they had a small, so it's dental plan administration is the nature of the business that we provide. So factoring in the small element that they had as well, we now look after around about 1,000 dental practices across the entire UK, and almost half a million patients.
Brilliant. So I think it's really interesting. A few things that you said that I'd like to pick up on. So you mentioned that you took a shine to sales and marketing.
Yes.
We quite often get asked to look for salespeople to come into smaller businesses, and
Mm.
graduates really aren't open for that. A lot of the time, they see it as I don't know, car salespeople or telephone salespeople or whatever, and they can be really put off by that. But I think what you obviously saw there was the opportunity to be really commercial. Obviously, businesses don't grow if we don't sell. And obviously, so I think that's really interesting that you took to that. But also, I think it's interesting that you ended up then retraining again. So you already had qualifications in sort of finance and
Mm.
accounting. You ended up in a finance business, but actually, it sounds like you still needed to retrain again. So it's that element of sort of lifelong learning and continuing to have to learn as you
Definitely.
go through as well. So
Yeah.
um, really, really interesting that the university is just the start and not the end. And I think that that's a really,
Yeah.
really strong message.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I would always advocate going to university. Personally, for me, I was originally from a place called Barnsley in Yorkshire. I
Hmm.
thought Barnsley was the epicenter of the universe. Going to the football on the weekend and a few beers afterwards was like, and this, which is fantastic and still love doing. But yeah, I think going to university, you're right, it is just that stepping stone. It does give you
Hmm.
exposure to a wider world. But then, yeah, if you really want to sort of push on, then I think you should always be striving to look at how can you continually look to grow, to develop, to learn,
Yeah.
gain, more qualifications. And I think just going back to your point about the sales piece, Tamsin, yeah, people are put off by that thinking, sort of cheesy car salesman, or
Yeah. Yeah.
not that there's anything wrong with car salesmen, by the way,
Not
but
at all.
I think if you find a product that you really believe in, then ultimately, all you're doing is trying to help another individual or a business with a
Hmm.
problem. That is ultimately what sales is. So, I would
Absolutely.
certainly encourage nobody to be put off by going into a sales orientated role.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's really, really strong advice from somebody who's seen it, all the way through to the end and now looking at an exit at a pretty young age. So um, it's funny now as well. I think people go to university now to study entrepreneurship, to
Mm.
kind of learn your journey. But I think
Yeah.
you've done it without having to study. I always think that's a bit false, but anyway, we'll see. As a small business owner yourself, then you know what it's like. Somebody took a chance on you, and you grew with the business, and it's worked out really, really well for
Mm.
both you and for them. So how what's your approach to bringing graduates into your own business?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can think of one in particular that joined us a couple of years ago. To be honest, very much came in a similar capacity in that we just needed some more hands on deck. They
Mhm.
got, I think, a few months exposure in another job, and if I think about how that person's role has evolved and the direction they're now taking and the exposure they've had to various different elements of the business. It's brilliant, and I think I mean ultimately when you think about the cost and the time investment of something like the step scheme, it's next to nothing. 12 weeks
Mhm.
flies by. The cost is
Mhm.
absolutely next to nothing, and ultimately you've got a chance where you could really change somebody's life. At the very least, you're just giving them a step up and some, excuse the pun,
That's all right.
and some really valuable experience. But there's a good chance that you might find a diamond, and
Yeah,
that's what every business is looking for. So
absolutely.
I think as well, a lot of people, and sometimes in some roles that we've hired for, you do need experience and you do need people who've got a particular skill set. But the advantage, I think, of a graduate is that they don't come with any sort of preconceptions. They don't come with certain ways of working, and you can almost nurture somebody into the right fit for the business's needs, which is really advantageous.
Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better myself. That's brilliant. It's just so, I think to have somebody who's gone through it all themselves as well and to come out the other end, and to still be advocating for sort of replicating the experience is what we're all about, really.
Mm.
Um, so um, Do you think that graduates are really worth the investment?
I'm sure it comes as no surprise. Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%. As I say, it's a to touch on the points I made before. At the very least, you're giving somebody some valuable exposure. There's a
Yeah,
good chance you might find a diamond. 12 weeks flies by. The cost is negligible.
yeah,
It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. And I
brilliant.
think sometimes just giving somebody that, maybe you don't need to maybe have a specific need. It's just give somebody a chance and just come in. And sometimes people naturally, you hear people talk about, don't hire people for a role, just hire people for being good people. And then
Yeah,
naturally, they may find their way in the business, and they may end up helping and working in an area that you didn't even realize was going to give you some
yeah.
significant benefit. So,
That's brought to mind the Dragon's Den, when they sit there and they say, I'm not sure about your business idea, but I like you.
yeah,
You're going to go
exactly.
far. So I think that's really interesting because, and if you don't open up your doors to look what's out there, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult out there for small businesses. It's really, really hard with the minimum wage increases, with the national insurance increases, with the uncertainty that's going on. But 12 weeks, neither here nor there, but could
Yeah,
make such a big
absolutely.
difference to your business and to the individual. Thank you
No.
so much, Simon. I've really enjoyed catching up with you. And it's just so lovely to hear these stories come full circle. Makes me feel a little bit old. Obviously, I've not been here
Yeah.
since the beginning of the business, but I was here at the beginning of your journey.
Yeah.
And I suppose, from my point of view, that's why I chose to keep Step going as a business. When our previous owners exited, and I got the opportunity to buy this business in a management buyout, that's what I wanted to do, is to carry on the good work that has been
Mm.
going on really since the 1980s. But we can only do it if small businesses will continue to adopt the idea and just to continue offering short-term paid internships
Mm.
to young people straight out of university to give them the opportunity. And you may well just make a life story. So
Yeah,
thank you so
absolutely.
much, Simon. It's been great to listen to you today
No,
and
no,
have a chat.
thank you, Tamsin. And, as I say, thank you so much to the STEP scheme. It's genuinely changed my life significantly. It's given me such an interesting career path that's obviously transpired into something that's now been life changing. And, along the way, it's given loads of other people that have then come into the business as the business has grown, opportunities as well. So, no, thank you to you and to everybody at STEP. Yeah, can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful. Thanks very much, Simon. That's really, really
Cheers.
good.
Thanks, Tamsin.